On today's episode of Keep Them Coming, I am joined by Ellie Berland, and we met up recently for coffee and decided we've got to have some further conversations about life, but let's record him this time. Let's get him on the podcast. So welcome to the show.
Thank you so much. I'm so glad to be here. It was so fun when we got together. It was like, oh my gosh, so many parallel experiences, so many interesting things to talk about, so many things in alignment of what you're seeing from your clients, what I'm seeing from my clients. It was a very interesting and cool conversation, even paralleled down to our growing up in church and things like that. It's been really interesting, and I'm excited to continue the conversation here for sure.
Well, I have been saying for years that I'm working on this book about sex, relationships, dating, and Christianity in America. So I've been working on finishing it. But when I talked to you, all these things were popping up about verifying all these things that I've interviewed or chatted with countless people who grew up in church and had such similar experiences here in the United States.
Yeah. Absolutely. Purity culture is no joke. I mean, it plants some things into your psyche that are very, very hard to remove. And for me, it's taken years and years, and I'm still in the process, even though I've lived such a full life, full spectrum of all types of dating, all types of sex, all types of everything. I mean, it's crazy. You can be, acting and living as someone that you want to and still have these things that you're working through. So
absolutely.
It's a process.
There are entire social media pages now dedicated to deconstruction. I don't know if you follow Deconstruction Girl on Instagram. She's one of my favorite.
I will now though. Cool.
Yeah. There are coaching programs out there designed to help people work past the messages that purity culture implanted upon us. But a lot of us, regardless of whether we end up pairing up with a coach, some of us are trying to work through this stuff, coach ourselves, read books, have experiences. And that's a lot of what you and I have done in our lives is just let's just go out and do the thing. Let's
just experience it. Yeah. I've so much of what I've learned has been scrappy, it's been books and experiences. And I'm so thankful that is the way that it is and has been for me, because I feel like I've gained so much in trusting myself and knowing myself in that process. And yes, later in that process, I've been able to get coaches and I've been able to dive in a little deeper way and go to classes and things like that. Not necessarily when it comes to deconstruction, but overall spirituality, health, mental health, all those things that are so important, and all of them are, intertwined in all the ways. But my initial sort of spiritual awakening came along with all of these things and the deconstruction of what the church had implanted in me. And it was scrappy. I've learned along the way, and it has hurt and it has been hard, but it's also been so freeing. And like I said, that sense of self-trust that I've gained because of those experiences and because of that time spent on myself in those books, in those processes, learning what it looks like to be me again, starting over from scratch. Almost, it feels like it's been priceless to do it that way. So I don't know if I would recommend it necessarily to someone else, but for me, it was good, long and good.
Yeah, it is a long journey for many of us, especially it depends upon what you're gathering along into your toolbox, I guess, whether that's therapists that are actually helpful and not just perpetuating some of the myths or some of the really harmful messages, just because they're carrying that bias with them still. Or we have friends who have done the work, friends who have had similar experiences and know what it's like to try to shake these things off, or partners especially who have done the work.
I feel like so much of what I've learned has been through partners. Honestly, so much of my journey is learning alongside the partner that I had at the time. And that's been a really interesting and weird and cool journey. And I'm really thankful for it. And I think that's so much of my story, especially when it comes to sex, is really I've been just so blessed and lucky with partners that have taught me so much along the way, and that I've just seen something in them that I really know that I desire, and gotten it from them basically. And it's been really lucky. I mean, even recently I was looking back at my journals and I had this really long entry that was just sort of like this poem to all of my lovers of the past, like, oh my gosh, I couldn't be more thankful for all the things that I've learned, all the things that I've gone through, all the heartache that I've had to feel, because it's taught me so much about myself, and it's taught me so much about life, and it's brought me to where I am today, which is able to stand on my own 2 feet and not have to rely on those partners, which I was. And it was definitely cycles of codependency and cycles of learning from them, good, bad, or ugly, you know.
That's a very thank you next approach, right?
Yeah.
Channeling your inner Ari.
Definitely that. Yeah, definitely that. It's been a funny little joke between me and my friends that I date a lot, have dated a lot. Like,
I've dated
which
a lot,
boyfriend is
a lot
coming now?
too.
Yeah. Yeah. Now I'm at a very different point in my life. Actually, this is an interesting thing we could talk about if we want to, maybe later. But now I'm at a point where I am like choosing not to date. I'm celibate. Like, I'm literally choosing time for myself and energy for myself, and that sexual energy for myself, instead of spreading it like I was, because it's just a different time period in my life. Like, it's, you know, I gained so much, like I said, but now I'm in a different space. So anyway, we can come back to that, but
we will circle back to
yeah,
that for sure.
yeah, it's
I'm sure
very
there's
full
listeners,
circle.
listeners out there that want to hear your story of your sexcapades.
Yeah, this is the fun part. Yeah,
but then also, I think that it's very freeing for some people to hear people's journeys, to hear the ebb and the flow, to hear, you know, the changes and the self-acceptance. So yes, we'll come back to that, because I think that'll be something wonderful for people to hear. But first, before we get much deeper, go ahead and take a moment, because you have already mentioned how a lot of what you've experienced is what led you to this point. I mean, obviously we're all on a journey, but like, you see the direct correlation between the impacts of some of the things you've done having brought you to this point. You didn't just land at this randomly, but tell the listeners a little bit more about yourself and what you're focusing on these days.
Yeah. So right now, I am multifaceted. So I have a few things that I do. I'm an experienced designer and have been for about 12 years. And I love that. That looks like event coordinating and planning and designing. And then I also, the newest thing that I'm doing, or coming back to, I guess, is sacred business and sacred life coaching. So for me, that means basically that all of life is sacred. And if you treat it as such, you'll remember how divine you are. And that brings in a lot of really, really cool things into life. And if you can find, and I help people find their alignment and their dharma and their purpose. And when you're acting from that place of knowing yourself and trusting yourself, like I was talking about, and acting on that divinity and being of service, it's wild how much life shifts. I went from being just like hustling all the time, like working nonstop, to before that we started recording, we talked a little bit about human design. And now knowing that I'm a projector, that's a whole other long subject, but knowing more about who I am and how I function, I have totally shifted my life and business to align with that. And it's absolutely wild, the amount of opportunities that come into my life. I actually just made a TikTok yesterday about, like, I wake up and ask myself, what do I want to do? So I have a morning routine, but part of that is just asking, what do I want to do today? What does my intuition feel that I want? Instead of, okay, what do I have to do? Who do I have to answer to? This and that. What do I, Ellie, sovereign being, want to do today? And yesterday I wanted to wake up and go on a walk. So I did. And I just went on like an hour walk with my dog. And not that this happens every single day, but it's crazy how many synchronicities can happen when you allow for this. But I went on this walk and ran into a person on the street who wanted to pet my dog. And then we started talking, and they wanted to hire me to do an experience. So it's crazy, like how, synchronistic and magical life can be when you really allow for it and when you tap into your intuition. And for me, part of that is tapping into your turn on. And that is partially sexual, partially not. But for me, I teach a lot of intuition and body connectedness and applied kinesiology. And so when you connect to your body that way, and for women, when we drop all the way into our pussies, we can feel when we're turned on and when we're not. And if you're living life from a place of turn on where you're only going towards the things that turn you on, holy shit, man, the world is magical. Like, it's absolutely magical. And there's a lot there, but
we didn't talk about this the other day when we had coffee, but like,
I know,
oh my
I'm like, there's so much more.
Oh my God, I love talking to people about connecting to their yes and their no. And I have asked them, like, where do you feel it? And oftentimes, yeah, women feel it very much down in their pussies. And they feel the no up in their chest.
Yeah.
Like they just feel short of breath, or like they just want to like sink in.
Yeah.
Ooh, yeah.
Yeah, what a fun start. But yeah, that's what I'm excited about now, is teaching people how to do that, and how to live their life from a place of huge fuck yes, instead of, whatever they have to do.
Yes, the enthusiastic yes. I love helping people connect to that. Absolutely. Like, so you mentioned human design earlier, and I've had a few friends talk about that. I had a couple of friends be like, take your quiz. So I did look mine up, and if you don't mind, I might ask you just a couple questions, because I'm sure the listeners are, if you're not familiar with human design, you've got some questions. Also, to let you know, Apple's new iOS update allows
I'm very excited about this.
Allows you to search for pictures you've taken. So I went into the search function for my photos and searched human design, and it pulled up through the AI.
That's a game changer.
Yes.
That's a game changer.
So if y'all have taken screenshots, you have 1,100 photos. You can search now by what you took the picture of. So anyway, my human design chart, and I know very little about this, says that
I'm not an expert either, but I can see what I can do.
I'm a projector. You said that's what you are as well. I'm a 5/1.
Okay. I don't know a ton about the gates, but I do know about being a projector because I am one. And human design is one of those things that I have an expert that I refer to, and she's actually coming on my podcast later this month. I'm excited about that. I'll have to connect you. Yeah.
So then, as a projector, what are some of your top tips you would say? When you also are talking about how it relates to the way that you are, doing the sacred life and business coaching, and that it's so important to tap into yourself, not just societal standards, or not just what everyone else is telling you, the way that you need to hustle. Like I am also tired of this hustle culture. I said to someone, he called me out in like October, November. He's like, you're just not hustling as much as you used to. I was like, yeah, I'm not, because I don't want to. And maybe that's related to all this.
That's exactly related to all of this. So that comes back to tapping into your yeses and your nos. So for projectors, there are a few things of how they function that are very different than the societal norms. Very different. And so for me, what I take from the idea of being a projector is, one, waiting for the invitation. So waiting for that someone to ask you. So like the example that we were talking about when I was like, what do I want to do, to listening to my intuition? And then on that walk, I got invited to talk about what I do for a living. And so I did. And it just turns out that that person on the other end of that conversation needed exactly what I do. So waiting for that invitation, it can look like little things, or it can look like big things. My most successful things in the world are when I wait for the invitation. In fact, the only reason that I am a coach and mentor at this moment is that it just so happened, and this is a cool spiritual teaching of when the teacher is ready, the student will appear. It's like a consistent thing. But for me, I had several friends reach out to me and say, hey, I know that you do that. I know that you're living the life that you're meant to live. Like, I know you're in alignment with what you're supposed to be doing. How do I do that? What do I do? How do I get there? Like, I want to quit my 9-to-5. I'm so tired of it. I know I'm meant for more. What does that look like? And so that invitation is what's leading me to do this more and more. So that kind of thing. So waiting for the invitation is one. And then getting horizontal as much as possible, which take that however you might take it.
Well, the listeners know that I take that very seriously.
Yeah. Being horizontal as much as possible is amazing. Good in many ways. I use that in many ways, including baths, naps, things like that.
Watching on the couch in the evening time. I'm
Absolutely.
once dinner and everything is done. Yep.
Oh, me too. I am on the couch. And I used to think I was so lazy. And now I'm like, oh, I'm just a projector. I'm just meant to be a queen who lays here. Bring me grapes, like that kind of thing. And it feels really good. When you like allow for it, when you actually like sink into it and be like, oh, this feels so good, instead of being like, oh, I feel guilty for not doing more. Like, fuck that.
Yeah.
Sink into it and enjoy. And then the other thing is that we're really not supposed to work more than like 3 to 4 hours a day. And so if you're working and pushing those like societal 8 hours, especially as a woman who our hormone cycles are really not meant for that, I'll be completely honest. But if we are focusing and organizing, and actually one of my newest offerings is going to be a journal about how to do this, of like actually structuring. It's the balancing of the masculine and the feminine, of like the structure around things and then the flow inside of it. But if we are actually organizing and doing those 3 to 4 hours as projectors, instead of pushing for those 8 hours, we're going to get so much more distilled, amazing work and pointed work from that. And part of that being so pointed, distilled, and potent is that you have to tap into that intuition. You have to tap into that yes and no to know what those important things are, instead of just like, oh my God, yeah, of course, if I wanted to make a to-do list, I could make it 7 miles long. And I've done that for a lot of my life. And you can just keep going on it forever and ever and ever and ever and ever, because we just tell ourselves, or even as business owners, this is aside for people that are in their 9 to 5, because that's its own thing, right? Like that's someone else's structure that you have to adhere to. But if you're a business owner, oh my God, we could infinitely, if you wrote out every single thing that you thought of / think that you have to do, it would never end.
Oh yeah.
And so
yeah.
Getting to the like yes and no, and leading from a place of intuition and like, this is something that I know is supposed to be born from me, and starting there and just doing that thing, it's a game changer. Truly makes all the difference, instead of just forever tasking.
Oh, that's really kind of hitting me, because the days that I can just do focus work for 3 to 4 hours, I get so much done. But compared to those days where I'm seeing clients is one thing, but allowing multiple meetings to pile up. Or I also started just working 4 days a week. I'm taking 3 days of like no clients, hopefully no meetings, or if it's stuff that's business related or volunteerism, those things can go on those days.
Yeah, that's the other thing too, is batching your days. Like I have certain days where I don't take any meetings, any clients, anything. I take a really long morning routine. I take a lot of time in meditation, and I'm like, what am I supposed to create today? What can I do to be of service? It has nothing, it's starting from like this place, instead of like responding and like reacting, it's getting ahead of it.
Yeah. Definitely I feel much better on the days where I feel like I am doing that rather than reacting to it. Yeah. Woo! Oh, damn. Okay. Some of that shit really makes sense now.
I'm excited for you to dive more into human design. I think, especially as projectors, it's so anti-culture, it's so anti-society, like the way that we function. And so to know that you're not supposed to function like everyone else is this amazing, beautiful permission slip to like sink into who you are and how you function. And that's, for me, that's why projectors especially should be business owners, because the way that we function, or freelancers or whatever, in charge of your own time, essentially. It is very, very, very hard to be working for someone as a projector, because we see all the inconsistencies and inefficiencies in the world. Like that's what like projector means, is like you see all the things that could be tweaked to make it better and more efficient. And when you're inside of a company and you feel like you can see those things, but no one's listening and no one's respecting your time and energy, it's like exhausting. You feel like you're hitting your head against a wall. And
Yeah.
that's, I mean, what I did forever. And yeah, and now having owned my own business for, I guess now 3 years, it's been a game changer of being able to like tweak and change it within my own business to make it function better for the way that I work. It's been great.
I feel that. But also like something that came to mind for me is like we do a lot of talking in sex and relationship coaching, especially with heterosexual couples, about how, you know, desire is a fire that has to get stoked. Like those coals need to stay at a low rumble at all times. And I think for far too many women, we are stretching ourselves too far. We are pushing ourselves too hard. We are hustling too hard and taking care of so much stuff that we are incredibly disconnected from yes. And when we're disconnected from yes, we're disconnected from our pussies.
Yeah, 100%. I mean, I actually have a whole ebook that I'm writing on this specifically, which is called Creating from the Quiet. And essentially what it takes to get to listening is quieting down, slowing down. Like we are so in our 9 to 5 culture, we're so in our masculine, and that's the 9 to 5. That's why I say it's really hard for women, because our hormones are not meant to be in the 9 to 5 structure. That's literally how a man's hormones work throughout the day. It's a 24-hour cycle.
I would say that 9 to 5 is not great for anybody.
You might be right.
Henry
You
Ford
might be right.
all over by doing that. Like, people want to say like, oh, well, you've got a better life than maybe an indentured servant or a serf. Like they actually had a lot more days off than we currently do under capitalism.
Right.
So
I was going to say capitalism is a whole other conversation, but when we and also this is a tricky conversation, and I'm still learning how to have it when it comes to gender and sexuality and all those things, because a lot of where I come from, it's masculine and feminine, and in reality it's yin and yang. Every single person has every single energy. It is not about men and women at all. But I find that as a uterus owner and a pussy owner, that I really enjoy being in that feminine energy. But in my day-to-day and in our society, it is more normal to be in the masculine energy, the getting things done, the tasks, the like crossing things off the list, the go, go, go. Like that is an energy that's important for the structure, but it's been kind of twisted in a way that takes us out of the ability to create. Because again, capitalism is a whole other conversation, but we've basically been taught to be worker bees, which is a very like, even not just masculine, but toxic masculine way of thinking and doing. But yeah, if we can slow down and listen to like the messages that your body is giving you, and especially with someone that has a bleed like I do, there are specific messages that come with that cycle and with that bleed that allow you to slow down that pace and really listen and create from that place. And it is so magical what can happen when you do slow down, quiet down, and start from there, instead of this like catching up, hustle, hustle, hustle. It's so different.
Well, I will look forward to reading that one. There's still, some things that I've got to learn and unlearn.
We all do.
Culture.
And this is newer. Like this is not being taught. This is, the age of Aquarius is where we're headed with this stuff. And it is a totally different way of being and doing. And we are stepping into a matriarchal system. It might take a while, but we can see the patriarchal system crumbling before us. It's clearly not working. The systems are falling. Yeah. It's not functioning. So
we will all benefit from these shifts. Like any man out there that is scared of the idea of a matriarchal society, like here's the thing. Just because men have spent a few millennia treating us like shit doesn't mean we're prepared to simply turn around and do the same to y'all. We believe in doing better. So
yeah, at least some women. There are definitely some man haters out there.
They are, and I'm not trying to be like, no, but like, look, on the whole.
On the whole.
It's
Yeah.
gonna be just trust us. We know what we're doing.
Well, I mean, if you really look at how women function, we function with empathy, with a little more slowness, with our intuition. And those are traits that I personally think that are what leaders should be made up of, instead of someone that is, this like,
Volatile, or
yeah, yeah.
the volatility exists in people when they are not in tune with their emotions.
Yes, 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 yes. Yeah. Yeah,
Mhm.
that's exactly right.
And
Yeah,
there's
no, I'm
more
in total
emotions than
agreement.
happy and sad or angry.
Yeah.
Hmm. So,
Hmm.
Ellie,
Yes.
you've had a fun time in your dating life in the last
Hmm.
few years.
Hmm.
So I've had a few people on here who have talked about swinging and poly and their journey through that world, and definitely some of the folks who have talked about their poly lifestyle have been, in it currently.
Yeah.
They Nothing wrong with promoting a lifestyle that's working for them. So I just want to let you take a moment to explain a little bit more about your journey in and out of poly, because you mentioned earlier you are now currently celibate, so we'll get to that. But
Yeah.
yeah, your journey into poly was a little different than what I think a lot of people end up doing. We've been together a long time and they're looking for something new or something different. A lot of people in swinging and poly tend to be a little older, whereas you're in your 20s.
Hmm.
So I was actually surprised when you told me how old you were because of your experiences. I was like, you've gone out there and lived a life, girl.
Yeah. Yeah, I
So
have.
I think that's how we all should do it. Like, just get out there and do the things. But
Yeah.
anyway, I've rambled enough. Tell me a little bit more about how did it
Yeah.
kind of venture into that world?
Yeah, absolutely. So I think I'm going to start with this. And it is that I think one of my personal gifts is that of curiosity and non-judgment. So for me, nothing is black and white at all. Like anything, everything is gray, or really rather a spectrum of color.
Yeah.
And so I okay, how do I even start this story? So, yes, my dating history and my sex history has been wide and varied and very interesting, and I've learned a ton along the way. But I think so much of it started from that place of curiosity and non-judgment for myself, like that I knew what I had been doing wasn't working for me. So I knew that, and I didn't know at the time that what I was doing was codependent monogamy. I didn't understand that. So essentially, I chose a very winding and interesting path to break my anxious attachment and codependency, and also some of the dogma and things that I had about purity culture. So I chose a very interesting path to break those things, but I also learned a ton along the way. And now I'm at a point where, at least for now, I know what I want. And I think that that's this story is I just allowed for what I wanted at the time to lead me, and knowing that none of it was permanent, nothing was that serious, that life is long and I get to choose, I get to keep choosing whatever it is that I think works for me and keep moving in that way. And so it all kind of starts with, um, of course, purity culture. And I was fortunate in my college years mostly to already have experiences where I so okay, backing up. I actually didn't have sex until I was 25 years old. So that's only been the past 4 years of my life. So much of this has happened in a very short amount of time, which is part of the funny thing. But in college, I was really fortunate to even have like good friends that I would like hook up with or make out with, that wasn't that serious. Like we knew we weren't anything, and I didn't feel like we had to be anything. And it was this like nice intro into like, well, that's a possibility if that's something that I want, you know. Pre-COVID, I was in a relationship with a man that I thought I was going to end up with. And turns out that relationship was very unhealthy and very codependent. And I didn't know it at the time because I just didn't have the verbiage for it. I didn't even know what anxious attachment style was or why I had it or anything. And so, and I've also been always a fixer when it comes to relationships. I've seen the potential in someone. And honestly, this is one of my gifts too, is that I can see someone's higher self. Like I can see what they're capable of. And I stand by that. That is really a gift. However, when choosing a partner, it can be detrimental because you see that the potential of someone, just because someone has potential doesn't mean they have any interest in executing it.
Oh yeah, I've definitely talked about that with clients. Like you cannot date the potential.
No. You have to date who is there. And it took me a long time to realize that. So anyway, I dated this person, and because I was in a place where I thought we were going to end up together, I finally was like, okay, I think I'm ready to have sex. So we did. And I wasn't even in the church anymore. It was just so I had internalized this idea that if I had sex, I would be tainted, that I would be someone who wasn't worthy of a grand relationship, this thing that I thought that I wanted, worthy of a marriage, or worthy of the right person, like this high caliber person that I wanted at a whatever point. Like I thought that because of the dogma, that I would be, unworthy. And so I know, and now I'm so past that. I am very aware of my work. Thank goodness. But it's been a journey.
How many people out there that are just like that sticks
oh my God.
with them, even when they are like logically pushing away a lot of the values, a lot of the messages that purity culture and church or family gave them, or even society, that stuff gets so ingrained in our brains that it's a challenge to overcome.
It really is a challenge to overcome, and it's taken me a lot of work to do. But once I ended up breaking up with that person really not that long after all of this, and in the middle of COVID. Mm-hmm. And so from there, once I women sometimes talk about this, like the breakups that like it's like so crushing that it like you like banshee scream, you know what I mean, like just like fall to your knees, like, and that was this for me. It was this like reckoning moment where I was like, how am I ever going to make it past this? This is what I thought. I was so sure that I put all of my eggs in this basket when it comes to like my purity, like the only thing that I thought that I had to offer, I gave to this man thinking that it would be forever. And we ended things, and it was a reckoning. It was just a crushing. It was like, I remember thinking and almost promising to the universe, like, I will never do this again. I can't. I literally can't go through this again. I will die, and I can't do it, which is a very hard but good place to be, because in that there's surrender. I give up. Like, I can't do it. I can't do that again. And with that, there was a time period, there was some healing, but with that, it opened up some doors for me to say, well, if I'm at this point, if I'm at the point where I thought I couldn't survive this, I've survived it. And I've also given away the only thing that I thought I had to offer, then, well, what else, And I just started to look around and think, I think I'm fine. Like, I think I'm still here. I'm still like in existence. And like, I think I'm still a human. Yeah. Okay. I'm still a human. I still have things to offer.
Yep.
Where do I go from here? And it just was sort of like, well, if I'm already tainted, well, then maybe I can be the slut I always wanted to be.
My God, it was kind of how I felt after I had sex for the first time. And I was like, well, I guess I can't go back to church. Let's just embrace the sluttery. Okay.
Yeah. I was just like, well, what if I'm a whore then? I don't know. And so
you also realize that in giving, like, you didn't really give anything away.
no, not at all. No, not at all.
That is what they try to train us to believe, right?
100%. Yes.
Yeah,
Like the moment that that's gone, we're like unworthy, that we're tainted, that we're dirty, that we're no longer of worth. And I was like, I feel like I still have worth. So let me go explore that and figure out what that looks like for me. And that has been the whole journey. It's been, I have worth. What does it look like? And where does it come from? And it's been up and down, non-linear as you can possibly be.
Yeah.
But it has gotten me to this beautiful place of like innate worthiness that I just can't shake. No one can shake. It's just there. It's for me. Yeah.
Love that.
Oh, yeah, it's amazing. Okay, so yeah, after that experience, I decided, well, I've never casually dated. It might be time to casually date. And so I just got on the apps and was just like, I have no interest in a relationship at this point. I'm going to casually date and see what happens. And I did. And one of the first people that I found on the dating apps ended up being my dom, spoiler alert, for almost a year. And he was really honest from the get-go. He was like, I am interested in non-monogamy. I am interested in casually dating. And this is the way that I like to have sex. Have you ever heard of BDSM? And it's interesting because the way that BDSM was introduced to me was by one of my highest spiritual mentors. And I love that. She introduced me to this woman who is a dominatrix and a Taoist nun, and was telling me about the energies, playing with the energies of back and forth, of masculine, feminine, erotic power exchange. Exactly. And to me, that was so fascinating. I was like, oh my God, I can't get enough. And so I started looking into this woman and tapping into my own switchy power. Like, what does that look like? That gets fun to play with. And so coming across this man that was like, I know that I am a dominant. And if you're interested, we can play with this in the bedroom and outside of the bedroom. And I was like, oh my God. It was like one of the first full body yeses I ever had. I was like, hell yes. And he was hot. Oh, he was so hot. So I was like, yes, of course. I'm so in. And so we did. We played with, we had this like beautiful container that was like safe and easy. And we almost talked about it as if it were an experiment. Like it was this thing that we wanted to play with, like not only within BDSM, but like, hey, what if we just talk about this along the way and figure out what works, figure out what we're interested in, play with all of these like, metaphorical toys and try these things on and see what we both might be interested in more and more. And he just provided this very beautiful masculine structure that I just got to be like, whatever I want to do. It was like this beautiful, amazing, sacred container that just like came upon me as soon as I was like, okay, I want to explore. Okay, universe, I want to explore my sexuality. What does it look like? And it was like, here, a little gift on a platter for you. And I was like, yes. So that was a very, very fun introduction to this. And at that time, I was like, again, because this whole self-image and unworthiness had just like shattered, all of it had shattered. I just was like, well, what do I actually like? And I got to ask myself those questions for the first time. And this is where I experimented within this safe container, which I literally, I owe him a thank you. I've given him several, but he did a lot for my life and growth. And I'm super thankful. But I got to explore dating women. I got to explore like really safe ways of dating multiple men. Like he would even like screen people for me. I got to go have like beautiful, like casual meetups within this like really safe space where he knew my location and like all these things. It was so lovely and open and no judgment, just like I had been trying to live my life, and like even celebrating my sluttiness. And it got to be this like beautiful thing, beautiful period of growth for me that let me just explore and deepen into my femininity, my sexuality, and just explore without boundaries. And so that exploration opened up my mind to, well, if I get to keep exploring, if I get to keep looking at this in this way, like what else is possible?
Mm-hmm.
Oh my God. And so, yeah, that was my introduction to ethical non-monogamy, which was clearly a really amazing experience for me. And so I thought, well, if this is the way that ethical non-monogamy is, then I am in, like, hell yes, you know? And that relationship was, like I said, a beautiful container. It ran its course, and we ended up ending things with mutual respect and love and care. And that was all great. And that led me into this journey of like, okay, well, if I am now single and still interested in ethical non-monogamy, what does that look like?
Mm-hmm.
And so I got to keep exploring with that. And the poly thing was very interesting. It was gradual.
Mm-hmm.
So within ethical non-monogamy, and this is an interesting thing too, because people use these terms sometimes interchangeably, but they are and can be extremely different.
Yes.
And I think that is one piece of advice that I could possibly give to someone that is on this journey or exploring with non-monogamy, exploring with poly, exploring with swinging, whatever it may be. Just because someone says a word doesn't mean that word thinks or means to them what it means to you.
Yeah.
So asking the questions like, hey, then what are your rules? What are your boundaries? What does that mean for you? Someone says, I have a partner and I'm non-monogamous. That could mean a slew of things. Do they know you're non-monogamous? Number one, are they aware and consensual and like excited and enthusiastic that you're non-monogamous? Or are they going along with it because they think that, you know, that's the only way they can keep you as a partner? Or are they not in the know and you're cheating? You know?
Yeah, that's it. That's where you're just completely lacking the whole ethical part, right?
100%. Yeah. But you have to be willing to ask those questions when you're encountering this, because all of these words have loose definitions and people use them interchangeably sometimes, when in reality there are different, you can even say the same word, mean the same thing, and still have differences within those boundaries and within those structures. So talking and communication is like the number one thing when it comes to all this stuff.
Absolutely. You do have to outline exactly what all these things mean to you. My partner and I are married. He is my nesting partner. We are in an open marriage, yet we don't like play with anybody right now. Don't have any plans to go play with anybody right now. But yeah, there are times where people see or hear that I'm in an open relationship, and then they try to slide into my DMs. And if you're listening, I'm just letting you know it's not appreciated. Because you didn't ask any questions, right? You don't really know me. You don't know what my thing is. And just because you see that on my profile doesn't mean it's an open invitation. So yeah, you got to talk to people about this stuff before you make any assumptions about how people are operating. And it also helps set up better expectations for what's to come. And if your way that you operate is not in line with the way that they operate, that's okay. They can go do their thing. You can go do yours. But you've got to be in tune with yourself and your needs and what you want. It's all about that enthusiastic yes for yourself, right?
Mhm. Yeah, exactly. And enthusiastic consent is one of the pillars that I decided very, very early on in my sexual exploration journey that was so important to me. And trusting that if I was a no, then I didn't have to do anything. You know what I mean? Like there in this journey, there were so many opportunities to check in with myself, which I think actually was such a big part of the learning experience along the way, was like checking in and deciding, do I want this or not? You know, because I got to keep, I was the captain of my own ship, you
Mhm.
know, and it's a very empowering, cool thing to feel that. And as a woman who is in her sexual power and learning what that feels like, there are a lot of offers that come in. I mean, it can be, especially if you don't have the boundaries, which now I've learned how to put those like energetic and actual boundaries around it so significantly that the filter is key. It's pretty awesome, because the only things that come through those boundaries are already mostly yeses, and then I get to decide, is it a hugely enthusiastic yes or no. But that was such a gift to me to be able to check in over and over again. Is this a yes or is this a no for me in every situation, whatever it may be? Yeah. So the poly thing. So I entered into poly somewhat accidentally,
Okay.
not fully, but essentially in the start of my ethical non-monogamy journey. I was dating someone alongside dating this person that I had talked about being this really sacred masculine container that was a dom, all these beautiful things. Um, and this person, he was in a marriage and but was dating me and one other person. So he was truly poly. I mean, he was almost kitchen table poly with
Mhm.
them. And our relationship was really beautiful. It was very long term. So we dated for like 2.5 years, but it was so slow. He was the first person to ever allow such a slow burn in a relationship. And I just really appreciated that. I really loved that we could see each other once every 6 months and it was like amazing, or once every 3 months. And then it, got shorter and shorter and shorter. And then we started seeing each other every week and that kind of thing. And it became more of like an ingrained relationship in my life. But he was the first version of poly that I saw. And his relationship with his wife it was platonic, the way that they functioned, but it was so beautiful and lovely. And I had such respect for her, and the way that she functioned with her partner on the other end of things. And I felt so like welcomed into that situation that it felt like, oh, well, if this is what poly is, like, I'm very interested in this too,
Mhm.
because I love the idea of a chosen family. I love my family dearly, but there are things, especially with that distance between Christianity and where I am now, that I didn't feel like I could always be fully myself with that family. And so having a chosen, yeah, having a chosen family was like incredibly appealing to me, and getting to do life alongside people that accepted me for exactly who I was and am
Mhm.
was like this beautiful invitation. And so I was like, oh my God, I want that so badly. And
Yeah.
so not only with that relationship with others, I started sort of seeing it pop up more in my peripherals, like, oh, poly is a thing. Not like I can have whatever actual emotional relationships I want, not just these casual sexual encounters or casual dating. Because for me, I'm a very deeply feeling person. Like, I love my people. I love them. And so it was very difficult for me to maintain any sort of interest sexually in people past the point of novelty if I didn't have any sort of friendship or relationship with them.
Mhm.
And so poly was very appealing because it was like, well, I can have my cake and eat it too. I can have these beautiful like sexual encounters and have these beautiful friendships and romantic relationships and whatever else I want. What I can be. I really got into the idea of relationship anarchy for a while, which was very
Mhm.
fun, where it's like no relationship goes into any category. Everything is whatever it is, which there's something really beautiful in the idea of that. Idealistically, it's perfect. You get to encounter and be with every human being exactly how you want to be without any restrictions. Like, you and that person get to decide what your relationship is. And I do take that somewhat still into my life, where some of my friendships have this sort of partnership aspect to them, not in a sexual way anymore, but in a like, we're doing life together way. We're not just hang out and get coffee. Like, we're in it together. And so there were some really beautiful like lessons that I took from that time period and I've placed into my life. But like I said, I kind of accidentally got into this poly world without really knowing. I mean, I did some research and I tried to understand, and I had understood a lot about ethical non-monogamy and boundaries and rules and like communication. And like, there's so much there that I studied, and then I also learned on the fly and learned from my partners along the way too. All of it was beautiful and all of it was important. The thing that I didn't account for was my partner's partners. I didn't account for the idea that not every single person on the other side of the partnership would be as enthusiastic about what was happening and enthusiastic about this idea of chosen family and about loving and accepting each other as I was. I didn't really account for that idea. And so along the way, when I was dating another person, who I was like really deeply falling in love with, to be honest, and he had this other partner, this is another boyfriend aside from the other, and he had this other partner that was much less enthusiastic about the situation. I was like mind blown. Like, I didn't even know how to handle it. I didn't even account for that as an option. And come to find out, like, that is definitely a part of poly sometimes. Like, not everyone is as excited, as enthusiastic, or able to speak their truth and what they want, or even know what they want to get to the point where they can have that communication with their nuclear partner so that everyone else can happily coexist. So that was a very, very challenging thing to learn, that there is another side of this that I can't account for, and I can't do anything to control. All I can do is myself and control myself, and what I'm feeling, and voice what I'm feeling. And for me, that it just got too hard. It just got too challenging. I got too deep in it without reciprocation. Like, for me, I was excited about the idea of kitchen table poly. I was like, oh my God, this is so fun. I want to be best friends. Like, I want bring everybody in. Yes. Like, oh, hell yes. Like, we all get to like be a loving family and like sleep with whoever. Like, I was like, this is the best. But that's not necessarily how everyone is able to see it. And that's okay. That's what they need. And that's totally fine. But I found it really challenging. And I guess I didn't account for some humanity, and that's something that is always going to come up, because not every single person knows how to voice exactly what they're feeling all the time. Not every person knows or can stand on their own 2 feet enough to say, this is not what I want, and I had to learn that for myself. Like, finally I was like, this is not what I want. As much as I want you, this situation is not what I want. And it went from being this really beautiful thing where I had these 2 like lovely boyfriends who knew each other, who were like working together and like supportive of me and caring, all the way to like, oh my God, this is absorbing every minute of my time and emotion and energy. And I just felt like I was being pulled in these directions, and I didn't know where to put my energy, because I wanted to put it in this place, but it was being asked of me in this place. And I felt like I lost control of my own time, of my own energy. And I felt so spread thin that I had lost myself in it, lost myself in the sauce. You know what I mean? It was just sort of like, Oh man, when did this go from me being this like empowered, badass, like slutty, amazing version of myself to like being ruled by everyone else's emotions all the time? And so for me, it just got to the point where I was like, I think that poly may not be for me strictly because I know that I have a mission on this planet, that I'm here for a purpose, that I'm like divinely guided to do all these things. And I finally decided that a lot of what I was doing in those back and forth times of these relationships was essentially just distracting myself from the things that I knew that I wanted. I had stopped listening to my yeses and nos because I was in these relationships, again, because I had cycles of codependency, I had cycles of anxious attachment that I had to heal
Mhm.
to even stand on my own 2 feet within a relationship. Trying to juggle multiple at once was too difficult. It was too much. I didn't have enough groundedness in myself at the time to make that work. And so I just said, everyone quiet, all of the emotions, all of the voices. And I ended things with both of those partners completely and took
That
some
is so
time.
important though, when you're on your healing journey, to take those moments to like, I thought my healing was going to take me this way. And now I realize I've gotten off track. Like
Yeah.
there is an ebb and a flow. There is a period of like feeling very, very expansive. And then suddenly you wake
Mhm.
up and realize that that's kind of retracted. So it's sort of like
That's exactly right.
you have to go through some of this muck in the
Mhm.
process to really understand more about yourself. You, of course, do your best to be kind to yourself and to be
Mhm.
kind to the other people that
Yes.
you're
Yeah.
having these experiences with. But
Mhm.
this is what happens.
Yeah.
You allow
Yeah.
yourself to explore via curiosity and see where life or the dating world or sexual experiences will take you. But when you
Mhm.
hit that point where you go, this just isn't in alignment with what I want, this doesn't feel great, there's got to be something different. You've got to listen to that.
That's exactly right. And even if it's, oh, like so much of this is what I want, but these key pieces are out of alignment for me.
Yes.
That for me was the hardest part. I was like, oh my gosh, so much of this is exactly what I want. But, and I couldn't reason with myself for just leaving it there. Like I couldn't live with the almost enthusiastic yes. I had to go with an enthusiastic yes, which was myself
Mhm.
ultimately. And that's what it always comes down to, is like, of course we hope that our people in our life like are supportive and caring, but ultimately we're responsible to keep choosing ourself, whatever that may mean, choosing the yes for ourselves that lead us to where we're going, and choose to look at all these things that come about in life as lessons. Like for me, in my opinion, we're here partially to be in school. Like we're
Yeah.
here
Yeah.
to learn things along the way. And so that curiosity and that like willingness to learn lessons, I mean, it's taken me very, very far, and I'm so thankful that that's the way that I've done things. It doesn't mean that it's saved me from all heartache and all struggle. It just means that on the other side of it, I know more of who I am, and I'm more and more in tune with my yes. And so
Yeah.
I keep following that.
Beautifully said. And trying to tune into that yes is what's led you to now be practicing celibacy. So this is not uncommon either for a lot of people. I've had some clients ask like, what, I feel like I'm just going through one extreme to the other. I was like, well, just release the judgment and say you were participating in something that you enjoyed, and now you're participating in something else different that brings you joy. Just find the neutrality so that you can
Exactly.
just participate in life in a way that feels authentic for you.
That's exactly right. And to me, I really believe in the idea of the energy of a pendulum, like swinging, and always it's going to find that neutral space. And for me, because I had been, I had been spreading and giving so much of my energy, sexual, emotional, physical, mental, that I had to take a moment. And that's what this is. It's taking a moment to come back to myself and give all that energy that I was spreading everywhere and just bring it to me, bring it in, kind of contract into myself a little bit for a little bit of time so that I can feel like my well is full again. And I can listen to those yeses and nos from a place of like overflowing yes and no, not just the quiet yes and no. And so for me, celibacy is that. It's really, and I also I don't know if you've ever talked about sex magic in anything that you do, but
I
it is a very
haven't.
okay, cool.
I want to try to get some of the folks that are out teaching or like kind of help develop sex magic on the podcast. But yeah.
You should definitely do that. Well, I won't go into it a ton, but um, there are a lot of ideas about how sexual energy is extremely powerful energy and how it is extremely creative and creating energy. And for me, because of all the things that I am creating in this world and how much I know they are needed, and I feel this like mission and this responsibility to do the things that I'm meant to do in this planet, I just knew that I needed some time to bring all of that energy back into me to actually create from a space of like this sacral energy well. And so that's what I'm doing now, is really pulling it all back and providing that energy to myself that I had been spreading out. So it's definitely a time period. It's definitely not forever. It is for a purpose for me.
Mhm.
And it already has been so fruitful. I feel that that energy is being spent well, and that it is allowing me to do things like this, where I am, listening to my yeses and nos. And one of those was talking to you and, being on the podcast and creating my coaching program, and all these things that I just feel so passionately about have come from this time of celibacy, because I get to focus all of my like partner, creative, sexual, all of that energy into myself. It's been powerful.
Love that. I love that. And you just sometimes need to listen to your intuition. You gotta listen to your gut telling you what you've got to do in this moment that's best for you, and release the judgment on yourself for anything. Just be.
That's exactly right. Releasing the judgment. And we didn't even really touch a ton on I mean, we did, I guess, with the purity culture a little bit, but the shame portion of so much of when it comes to sex, and especially of like the way that society views sex. And for me, getting rid of that shame was the biggest thing. And that comes with every portion of what we talked about, like really releasing the shame and judgment of thinking that anything that I have tried on along the way means anything about who I am.
Yeah.
It doesn't. It doesn't mean anything about who I am. They're simply clothes from a closet or toys from a closet. You get to try them on, see how they fit, walk around in them for a while. Oh, maybe this is the thing that I like this a lot. Like maybe for a while, just like your favorite outfit. Like, oh, for a while, this feels really good. I might wear this a lot. And then one day you're like, oh, I'm kind of tired of that outfit, and then try something else on. It's the same thing. It's just flowing with who you are and what you're looking for at the time, whatever feels like a yes or a no, and then being willing to take that thing off and put it back into the closet when it's no longer fit for you, and not let it mean anything about who you are as a human being.
That metaphor is beautiful for many things in life.
Yes. Yeah, absolutely.
Well, Ellie, we're at the end of this show. So the last thing that I do to wrap up my podcast is have a Ask Coach Kristen Anything segment. Now, this is your chance to ask me a question, for something you'd like more information about. You can ask for a friend, or just give my opinion about something that maybe you and some friends were chatting about, and see what I might have to add to the conversation.
Very fun. I guess I would ask, and this is probably more for the listener because you focus so much on sexual education, and I didn't touch on any of that during our conversation. But I think there's such an important piece of poly or non-monogamy that we didn't touch on, which is like the safety and the communication portion. And I guess I'm curious, if you were to have to give some advice about like some of those things, what would you tell the listeners about safety and communication?
I appreciate that question because, and I do think some of this also relates to dating in general, the kind of
Yeah.
safety measures you need to take. Um, okay, if you, especially if you're a woman and you're looking for a man online and he gives you his name, and you should always get a full name before you ever meet up with somebody. No, just first names, no usernames. If you met on maybe FetLife or something, you should know their full name, and you should be able to find them online somewhere. If you cannot find them online, they're likely not who they say they are. Maybe hold off, try to get some more information. They could be hiding something. Okay. So if, again, you're trying to get into poly, or you are a poly person and you want kitchen table, you want open, all those things, you've got to inspect for what you expect. So how open they are in the beginning will tell you volumes. I think if they're saying things like, oh, my wife, we are open, but she doesn't want to know anything, right there, to me, that's a red flag for high levels of jealousy. The research, there's been very little research about poly people, but the little bit of research that there is show that the more open and transparent the relationship is, the lower the levels of jealousy are. Again, back to the safety thing. I think that you need to have a video or a phone call before you go and meet in person with somebody. I think that can also help just make sure that, like, can we have a conversation? Like, are we going to get along? But they've also got to pass the vibe check, right? And I think that
what about sexual like health and safety as well? Yeah.
Yes, I think that that is something that's important because you can only control yourself. They can only control themselves. But if they've got multiples, like, you are going to be linked somehow. So when you're talking about things like fluid bonding, you got to ask those questions about what are your policies with your primary partner about fluid bonding. If they say that they're fluid bonded with 6 different people, but those people are also dating, I need to ask some more questions.
A wide net, yeah.
That's a very wide net. Other people are very, very small with that. Like, they may have some people who are their, cuddle puddle buddies, but they don't actually have any sexual interactions. Like, it is okay to ask for these details because your sexual health matters. It is okay to be asking, when was the last time you were tested? And also, my biggest piece of advice on that is, if anyone says, I'm clear, or I'm clean. Okay, clear. You could say my test results were all clear. My test results were all negative. But if they ever say I'm clean, they may not have not had a STI test ever. In fact, because clean is not a medical term. Yours doesn't call you. Yeah, you don't get a message from the doctor line saying you were clean. You get a message saying your test results were negative. Your test results were clear.
Yeah, right. Exactly.
And you need to talk about barrier protection. Not enough of you all are, and I don't mean you, Ellie, or poly people. I mean
everybody. Yeah.
General, we are not using barrier protection as much as we claim we are. If we were using as many condoms as we claim we are, the sales and production of them would be double.
Wow. That's a wild statistic.
Yeah. Also, people don't think about oral sex as needing barrier protection.
Yeah, that's a big one.
Like, if you're going down on a woman, you're susceptible to plenty of
all the things. Yeah. Most of the things. Yeah.
Yeah. So I wish y'all would use dental dams more often too. You can turn a condom into a dental dam. But yeah, I think cool. Safety wise, those are some of the primary things. Is if you're not wanting to get caught up in someone's bullshit, you've got to ask questions.
Mhm.
And
be willing to listen to yourself and like say no when those red flags come up instead of being like, oh, it's probably fine.
right? Yeah. Yeah. Cause I mean, you might think that this person is absolutely hot. You might find them incredibly attractive. They might have this energy that you are craving. But if the other things are adding up, again, if you've got this list of 10 things that are in line, but these two really critical things are not aligned, such as the level of transparency, you're just something just doesn't quite seem right. You can't find them online. They don't seem to take their sexual health very seriously, or they don't seem to take people's feelings very seriously.
Mhm.
And those things are important to you. Yeah,
Listen
there's
to it.
plenty of
Yeah.
fish out there, especially ladies. Like, you can go catch a dick real fast. Like, it's not that
It's not that
hard.
hard. It's not that hard. Yeah.
Yeah. So yeah, I'd say those are my main tips.
Oh, I love it. Thank you so much. And thank you for having me on. It was so good to get to continue our conversation here. It's so
Absolutely.
fun.
Well, and of course, take a moment and let the listeners know how they can find you online.
Yeah. Easiest is Instagram, at Ellie Berland _ ELLIE BERLAND. And I have a lot of stuff there and some links to some of my resources and things, and have a lot more in the works right now. So
Wonderful. Wonderful. Well, again, thank you. Thank you so much for joining me today. And I'm sure we are going to be chatting again more very, very soon.
absolutely. Yeah. Thank you so much.